At this point, I've put in about 40 hours into Monster Hunter Rise, and I feel like it's about time for me to form an opinion on whether or not it was worth playing. And I know a lot of people are already going to say that really Sunbreak is where the game starts getting good, so I haven't fully experienced everything Rise has to offer. And we'll talk about that in a moment. To give you a little bit of context, I only started playing Monster Hunter about 4 months ago, and I started with Monster Hunter World. Directly after I finished Iceborne, I started playing Rise. I've never touched any of the old gen games, so if you're an old gen player, this video might hit a little different. But when I played Rise, I experienced a lot of things that I actually really liked, and then other things that I certainly didn't. So let me go over some of the things that I really liked first, and I'll let you guys know kind of my full perspective before getting into the conclusion. Let's start with the most notable thing about Rise, for me at least, the Palamutes. I really liked having a Palamute in my party, and the ability to just summon a mount basically at any time is great. Being able to hop on your Palamute and then sharpen your weapon or heal up is a really great advantage. It also gives you a launching point if you're trying to do some aerial attacks, which for most weapons, a launching point is necessary to do aerial attacks. I'm not a dog owner myself, but I feel like this would really resonate with people who are. And min-max players will tell you that 2 Palicos is actually a better way to play the game. It's more optimal. But personally, I really like the advantages of the Palamute, and I also just liked having a dog on my team. It was cool. The next most notable thing in this game is definitely the Wirebugs. Wirebugs are essentially a movement enhancing tool that your hunter has, and they can also change or enhance certain moves. As a greatsword main, this was great because it was another way for me to launch myself up for aerial attacks. And it's another really creative thing that the Rise team did to make combat in this game very interesting and unique. There's also the Wirefall, which is a great recovery tool if a monster hits you and you could just get out of the way really quickly. I know a lot of people were not a fan of the Wirebugs, but I actually really liked them. Aside from this, Rise also had some great quality of life changes, like being able to tap a mining node once and you get all of the materials immediately instead of just having to sit there and hold it down. Switch abilities were also a really interesting way to mix up combat. You're able to change out certain moves in your move set for a different type of move, and then later you get scrolls so you can switch between 2 complete move sets. I found that there's a lot of conditionals for switch abilities, like this would be great to have in this moment, so once the scrolls came in, it was a huge boon. Being able to swap switch abilities at will was really helpful. You do get those scrolls really late in the game. It might actually be a Sunbreak thing, I'm not sure, but if we're only talking about base game, the scrolls were definitely not a thing. Another small thing that I actually really liked about this game is how much personality your hunter has. The fact that your hunter has a lot of voice lines, it's bleeding! It just gives a player character a lot of personality, and I really liked that. The thing that I think Monster Hunter Rise did better than anything else though was actually the theming, the vibes. I really love that the new monsters were based off of Japanese folklore, and I'm not sure if they've done something like this in past Monster Hunter games, but for me it was a very new experience. It was really interesting to see armor sets that looked like they were based off of samurai or oni, and as someone who loves Japanese artwork, I thought it was just really cool. So I did end up having a lot of fun with certain elements of the game, and I wish I could end the video there, but we have to talk about the things I think could have been better. Let's start with the story. And to be honest with you, I don't really have a lot to say about the story because I don't remember any of it. The base game story was so insignificant and uninteresting that I was fully checked out. Here's what I do remember. You're a hunter in Kamura City. The monsters rampage sometimes and you have to protect the town from these rampages. Magnamalo is particularly a menace, I guess. And yeah, that's the whole thing. That's all I remember. It doesn't feel like there's any reason why you're in this town other than you're a monster hunter, I guess, maybe? You're the new guy in town, but for some reason you're like the best person at this. I also understand that generally in past Monster Hunter games, the story is definitely not the strong suit, if it even exists at all. But I thought World had such a rich story and I felt immersed in that world. I thought it was so cool that you started the game on this boat. You're a fresh hunter, you're going to this new world, and you have literally no idea what to expect when you get there because no one knows. And as someone new to the Monster Hunter series, I found that really immersive. But there was really none of that in Rise. So I didn't really feel any connection with myself or any of the other characters. I actually don't even know what their functions were. I'm like, that guy is the boss of town for some reason, and this guy is teaching me things for some reason, and these 2 ladies are people who give me quests for some reason. I don't know. And I also didn't even feel a connection with the town in the game, Kamura. It felt very spread out and like almost intentionally inconvenient. Like you have to first physically walk everywhere before you unlock it and can fast travel there. But places like the training area, places like the buddy plaza, it all just feels so inconvenient. And then you go there and everyone wants to talk to you and you're immediately overwhelmed. When I set foot in Astera, I was like, yes, this is home. I love it here. This is awesome. And it was really easy to figure out where everything was. With Kamura, I had no reason to pass through the Buddy Plaza. Even the gathering hub just felt weird. The other thing that I think made the town extremely uncomfortable for me was the music. And I know a lot of people really liked that the music was so on brand and on theme for this game, but I just didn't. It mainly had to do with the lyrics. Maybe they just needed to turn down the vocals, but I found the vocals extremely distracting and it made me want to just turn off the music for this game altogether. And doing so was also inconvenient because then you miss like the themes of the actual monsters in the game. But I think if you're in the town for a long time and you're hearing the same vocals looping over and over again, it just gets really exhausting. Let's move on to the hunting and exploration aspects outside of Kamura City. My biggest problem with the hunting in this game is that it didn't exist. In World, it was so immersive that you would find footsteps and then the scout flies might kind of guide you to more footsteps, but it's all very gradual and eventually you're able to track down this monster. That's not how it works in Rise. In Rise, you have a map in the corner of your screen, and yeah, you do have to uncover the map by running around, but you see exactly where the monsters are on your map, and they're just question marks at first, but you just go to a question mark, and if it's the wrong monster, you go to the next question mark. There's no hunting, so it effectively deleted any immersion that I had of being an actual hunter. Another immersion breaking aspect were the cutscenes before every single hunt. To be fair, if you listen to it in the Japanese sub, it's more of a song, and it does feel more like a Japanese poem, like of the time. But the cutscenes were so immersion breaking because you were seeing this video of this monster already in the environment, instead of, again, tracking it down and then seeing it for the first time and having that first relationship with the monster. Oh my god, there it is. I have just been hunting for this thing for 10 minutes and I finally see it in front of me, and this is what it looks like. In Rise, it already gets spoiled for you what the monster looks like and even a bit of what it does. The cutscenes very quickly became a thing I wanted to skip because I wanted to experience the monster for the first time with my own eyes, up close and personal, after I had tracked it down, which still ended up being extremely underwhelming because there was no introduction to the monster other than the cutscene, and just running up to a thing wasn't super exciting. But this is another general complaint that I have about the monsters in this game, is that they all feel insignificant. Well, not all of them, but most of them. And it's because mechanically how things work. Basically in Rise, you do an urgent quest or you do a story quest, and after that they say, okay, now go hunt 3 to 5 monsters, whatever you want. Here's a list. So you basically just pick whichever ones you want to hunt. But they have no real reason for being there. When I think of World and how they introduced monsters, it was like, oh, these monsters are acting really strange. Could you go investigate? Or why is this monster in this area? It's not supposed to be here, and maybe tracking it down will give us clues as to what Zora Magdaros is doing. But just having a list and then someone being like, I don't know, you go choose 3 or whatever, and then maybe something in the plot will happen. It feels like such a cop-out and it's so boring. It also makes it feel like a grind, because what World did by giving more of an introduction to each monster is made it feel like it was something that you need to do. It made it feel important, and I didn't feel like I was grinding anything. And another thing about the selection of monsters in this game is that I could actually tell when a monster was an old gen monster that was returning and when it was a monster that was made for this game. Every old gen monster I fought, I was like, okay, this is kind of boring. And I know for old gen players, this is probably a different feeling, but it just felt like filler, which added to how much it felt like a grind. They could have shaved off probably about 20% of the monsters in this game, and I think it would have been much better for the pacing. But aside from the monsters in the field, let's talk about the actual field. The maps themselves feel very flat, which isn't even true because there are layers to the maps and there are underground areas and there's overground areas. They just all felt bland is the best way to put it. And maybe that's a graphical issue. I do know that this game was built for Switch more than anything. And on the topic of graphics, if the Monster Hunter team knew that they were going to make a game that was pretty much for Switch graphically, then why didn't they stylize it? I think if this game had like Monster Hunter Stories 2 graphics, I probably would have been all in, and this would be a completely different video. Because then you also understand, oh, this is going to be a very different game that I'm playing. But it almost felt like graphically it was trying so hard to get close to World, or as close as they possibly could get on Switch, that's how the entire game felt. Like they were trying as hard as they could to be as good as World. I wish they would have just let this be a Switch game. Let it be more cartoony. Let it be what it is. The pacing is really the biggest problem I had with this game, I think. I wanted to put it down, and I did put it down multiple times during my playthrough because I just got bored or annoyed. I didn't want to hunt 3 monsters to get to the next part of the plot. I didn't want to do Rampages at all. And actually, let's talk about Rampages for just a second. painful. I get that they were trying to do something different with tower defense, but tower defense in first person is buns. I actually think this would have been a really cool idea if it was like a third person tower defense. I would have been fine with doing a little tower defense minigame in third person, but the fact that you had to physically run around and set shit up sucks. The best part of the Rampages were the part where you jump down and fight the monsters yourself, which is basically just like playing the normal game. They lasted way too long, they had way too many tutorials, everything was extremely inconvenient, which seems to be a theme of this game. But let's get back to the main point, which is the pacing in this game felt like something I had to get through. You have to get through these 3 monsters to get to the urgent quest. You have to get through base game so you can get to Sunbreak. And I constantly heard that from people over and over again. Just get through the base game. Sunbreak is really where it's at. And I have a huge problem with that in general. It's the same thing as if someone says, oh man, you gotta watch this TV show. It doesn't get good until season 4, but just get through the first 3 seasons. If you're telling me that I need to get through 20 to 40 hours before something actually gets good, that's literally 20 to 40 hours of something I could be enjoying. And this was a big difference for me from World to Rise, is that I never had to get through anything in World. I enjoyed it from the minute I started playing until the end of Iceborne. Base game was fun. It was enjoyable. It was compelling. I was invested from the beginning to the end. And Rise was entirely me getting through base game. And by the way, I did make it to Sunbreak. Very low MR, but right when I got there and right when I saw the new city and I thought, wow, Sunbreak is actually going to be something different, I got my first MR quests. And what were they? Repeat monsters. More stuff to get through. And the first thing I was told was just get through to MR4. Guys, I'm exhausted. I don't want to get through any more of this game to play a good game. And at the end of the day, it just is what it is. I'm not saying I didn't enjoy this game. I'm saying that it just felt laborious and excessive and tedious and grindy. And that feeling would build up until I would just put the game down for a week to 2 weeks. At which point I thought, hey, I'd like to play some Monster Hunter and maybe something new, and I'd start playing Rise again. But between the Palico skills and the Palamutes and the Bunny Dongo and the endemic life and the overwhelming amount of quests, it felt like there was so much to learn in this game, and none of it even mattered. None of it was necessary. Could I have invested more time in my Palico skills or learning endemic life or the entire map and made it a better experience for myself? I guess. I mean, maybe I could have killed the monsters faster, but that's not what I was here to do anyway. And it wasn't that it was too challenging, because it certainly wasn't. It was just that I wasn't having a great time. I mean, at the end of the day, it's a Monster Hunter game, and Monster Hunter is pretty fun. I feel like if I would have picked up Rise before World, one of 2 things would have happened. And the first is I would have enjoyed it a lot more. I would have been like, oh, this is actually really cool. And then I would have moved on to World and been like, whoa, this is crazy good. But the other of the 2 things that could have happened is I would have felt the exact same way that I feel now, and then I would have never played another Monster Hunter game again at all, and this video wouldn't exist. But that all being said, is it worth playing this game? Well, I think the answer may be a little bit more complicated than yes or no. The fact that Rise now goes on sale, including Sunbreak, for like $20, and the fact that it is accessible on Switch makes it a really good alternative for like when you're traveling or when you can't access your PlayStation or your computer. But then there's the fact that Wilds is probably out by the time this video is on YouTube. I would say if you're already a Monster Hunter fan, or if you're someone who only has a Switch, Rise is definitely worth trying. If you're an old gen player, maybe you do pick it up, because I hear that it's pretty similar to some of the old gen games. For a game that's anywhere from like $10 to $15 just for the base game, and who knows if you'll make it to Sunbreak, you might as well pick it up. Play it casually when you have some downtime if you have nothing else to play. There are definitely some enjoyable parts, and maybe you'll like it more than I did. But if this is going to be your first Monster Hunter game, I would actually highly advise against playing it, because I think there's a chance this could ruin the series for you. As of now, I'm still casually playing through Sunbreak, and I am kind of killing time while Wilds is not released yet. Once Wilds is out, I'm not sure that I will go back to Rise. Maybe if I'm traveling and I can't access my PS5 like I said. But I hope you found this video helpful. As always, thanks for watching. Hit the like and subscribe button if you feel compelled, and I'll see you guys in Wilds.